She does.
Yeah, and they're not colleagues, but you might want to look her up if you want to get into that.
Her name is Megan?
Yeah.
Okay.
She's no joke.
Yeah.
All right,
Thank
we
you.
can get started. Gonna try to get microphones to speak up. If you can't hear back here, let us know. Again, I'm Larry Boris, head of the Gun Club. Thanks for coming today. We're pleased to, we're pleased to have Vince Perez-Mazzola, Director of Training at C2 Tactical, joining us today. He was kind enough to come on down, and we've had him before last year. Just a wonderful speaker, great resource, and he'll tell you a little bit more about C2 Tactical, which is Scottsdale. But today's presentation, we're going to be talking about ARs. We're going to keep all the windows and doors closed because he's got a simulated AR. We don't want anyone looking. We've gotten kicked out of this room before. Thank you all. So with that, again, members is looking to buy an AR-15. If anybody has one, if they want to sell, let me know. Otherwise, let's welcome Vince and we'll get started.
I'll do my best to speak loud enough that I may not need this. You guys good? You hear me back there? Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so he's right. I did bring a little toy. And it is a toy, but we want to treat it like it's a real firearm. So when I play with it, I'll be using this as a quasi-safe direction. Basically a simple AR-15 style, old school with an 8.2 upper on it, with a full handguard, 16-inch barrel, M4 barrel, and adjustable stock. All sorts of crazy words, right? We'll get into that so you understand what they mean. AR-15s are everywhere, literally everywhere. And Barry says, hey, what do you want to call this thing? And I think I first made a joke. Everything you want to know about ARs, what YouTube told you. So we came with this comprehensive overview of America's most popular rifle. And it indeed is. AR-15 is the modern musket, tool of defense, recreation, and competition for millions of Americans. Why is that an anonymous or unknown quote? Because that's ChatGPT talking. That's ChatGPT saying, what does everybody think about the AR-15? At least who is pro-gun or at least pro-AR-15. They really are ubiquitous, and they've been around for an insanely long time. Most people don't realize this. The AR-15 or the AR platform, right, was developed by this guy over here with the funky little his bow tie, guy named Eugene Stoner in the 1950s. So when everyone looks at like these cool guns, they're like, wow, this is deep modern. It ain't. It's an old gun. We're going on 75 years of this platform being around. It first started out as something called an AR-10, which was a battle rifle. Okay, what's the difference between a battle rifle and an assault rifle? Battle rifle, large caliber, right? 30 caliber plus typically, long ranges, engagement, one round, one kill. That was the original concept of the big battle rifles back in the day. Then when warfare started changing and the concept of the assault rifle came around, which oddly enough started right at the end of World War II with the Sturmgewehr 44 and Hitler's stormtroopers, was every rifleman would be a machine gunner essentially. Shorter ranges of engagement. And the goal was not to kill the opponent, but to wound them. You kill one guy on the battlefield, there's one guy off the battlefield. If you wound a guy on the battlefield, 4 other guys have to take care of him. And that's literally what it came down to. That was the concept of assault rifle. Be able to put lots of lead down range and make things happen. So the original battle rifle, which was supposedly designed, did not get adopted by the military. He shrunk it down to the AR-15, which is a smaller caliber, 2.23 or 5.56. We'll get into that. But essentially, you know, a little 22 some of you guys shoot for fun. AR basically shoots a little 22 on steroids. Right? A lot more powder, a lot more gas, but essentially the same caliber bullet. Very small, moving very quickly. So they sold that to Colt, and Colt then marketed it as the M16 to the military. Now, the military originally did not want it. They wanted battle rifles still. And the first branch of the military to actually adopt the AR-15 was the Air Force. They grabbed it as a survival rifle for their pilots because back in the day it was super, super, super light. Now with all the stuff they strap on it, they're not super, super, super light anymore, right? Basic old school M16A1 was probably about 6 pounds, which is extremely light to carry around. Now with all the stuff strapped on it, you're looking at 9, 10 pounds. An M1A is like 10 plus pounds when you put everything on it. And that was our old battle rifles. They went to that. Been around for a long time. Now, Colt then marketed it to the civilian market. So that's where some of the weird stuff happens. AR does not stand for assault rifle. It stands for Armalite Rifle. That was a company that originally made it, Eugene Stoner's company, Armalite. However, the anti-gun guys are actually right as well. It was designed as an assault rifle. So it's both. Both sides are right. And I think it's important to be honest that way. Yes, it is an assault rifle, but it does not stand for assault rifle. Now, some people argue, and I think they're splitting hairs here, that a true assault rifle has to be capable of fully automatic fire. So burn, machine gun stuff. Yes and no, right? But essentially it really was. So I think it's important. And really, if you look at the original model, something that looks like this has now evolved into something that looks like this. Yeah, all sorts of stuff and crazy stuff. We'll get into some of that. By the way, I'm gonna leave plenty of room for questions and answers because I know there's a lot of things we want to know about this. So AR-15 in the civilian world been used by police and military for quite a while. It's now become America's rifle. Really, it's so weird that we have a symbolic weapon. Kind of freaks me out a little bit because the only other place I know has a gun on their flag is, I believe, Angola. Yeah, I know, right? So it is America's rifle. People use it this way, all different types of mics and models. And some people are, I think it's kind of neat. What they're doing is adding wood furniture to it to make it look a little less scary. And quite frankly, I think it looks pretty classy that way. I forgot the name of that company. It's called Woolix that does that. A lot of people use it for sport shooting, hunting, and home defense. Is it ideal for any of those things? I'm going to tell you right now, it's not. It's just not. There are way better rifles for shooting in competition, shooting and hunting, and shooting for home defense. But this is what we got. These are everywhere, right? Kind of like Glocks. Glocks are not, personally, I don't think they're the best firearm. They're one of the better ones, but they're ubiquitous, right? So if you're going to have one or you buy one and you encounter one, you better have a clue. It's the way it is. Why are they so popular? Honestly, I think half of it's because cool guy factor. Everyone wants to look like a commando and, do all the fun stuff. Or if you served in the military back in the day, it is, hey, I get it, right? I like this. I one day will buy the same model of the first car I ever had, right? For nostalgic reasons. But they are very lightweight until you start strapping junk on them. Very low recoil, like insanely low. I can put that buttstock on my chin and press the trigger and I won't hurt myself. Will I feel it? Yeah, but it's not gonna knock me out. I do that with M1A, I'm going to the hospital, right? Or something bigger, even AK-47. Because of the way the system's designed, it's extremely low recoil. And so it's a very comfortable, fun rifle to shoot. And that's one reason people like it. And after a certain amount of training, it's relatively easy to use. Because when you look at these things, we've got a charging handle, we have a safety, we have a paddle assist here to let the bolt go forward, a forward assist for the bolt, our handle, our trigger, magazine. See how it gets a little complicated. Once you get comfortable with this, kind of like your new car, once you figure out where to put the keys, or we don't put keys anymore, where to set the keys, where to push the button, all the things, you get comfortable with it, you can drive it really well. And I mean, we have little kids that can shoot these things, even the full 223. It has become somewhat of a political flashpoint in the gun control debate, and I understand why. Somebody who wants to do bad things with a double barrel shotgun can do bad things with a double barrel shotgun. It's way easier to do a lot more bad things with one of these because of the rate of fire, the amount of ammo that can be held in it, the ease of shooting. So far, we've never had an actual active shooter with any real skills. Hasn't happened yet. We've had road amateurs. Straight up, people can barely function their firearm. Thank God. Because I will tell you, if I was very fortunate that if you were here last time, I've never served in the military, never been in law enforcement. I'm a normal guy who got sucked into the world of cool dudes. I work with special operations guys. They're my friends. I talk to them on a weekly basis. My one buddy is in Poland right now, kind of calm down the Ukrainians. Lieutenant Colonel, he's special operations. My other buddy is former Delta. My other buddy is former SF. It's just the people I hang out with. I got to see the best of the best do what they do and how they do it. If one of those guys decided to take his AR-15 and go down to the mall, the body count would be insane. Insane. Hasn't happened yet, thank God, right? And I don't think it will. Most of those guys don't go that way, and if they do, it's usually handled in-house. We'll just leave it at that. But if you do have skills with a platform like this, you can do a lot. And so again, that's more of a so ubiquitous, it makes sense to know about. So these things are a little complicated, much like your handgun, right? There's maintenance that you have to be familiar with. A car where you can just drive it fast and have everybody else do something else. With these items, you really have to have a clue, and it breaks down into these major component parts. So, and this is what makes kind of the gun unique. This entire top part can come off. So this whole part up here, including these two parts, is called the upper. The upper consists of the barrel, the gas system, I'll get to that later, the receiver, and then inside the receiver will be the bolt carrier, the bolt, and a charging handle. That entire thing can go plop and come off. And then you can what? Put a different one on. Different length barrel. You were asked about that. Different length barrel, certain calibers, all different things. So it's incredibly modular. You can do all sorts of stuff with it. This lower part, which legally is the firearm, is called the lower. As your buttstock, there's a buffer tube in here, and this is one of the reasons I'm not the most favorite of these things. When that buffer tube, when that hits that buffer, or that the bolt hits that buffer tube, it goes clang, clang, clang in your ear. I find that a little annoying, but that's just me. You have your fire control systems, your grip, your trigger guard, and your trigger, and this whole lower part, and this is where the magazine goes. So this is legally the gun itself, and this is totally interchangeable. And you can do all sorts of cool things with it. But this basic breakdown, removing the magazine, taking the upper off, taking the bolt carrier out and the lower, is the minimum knowledge you need to be able to clean this thing if you're going to do that on your own. If you have an armor or a gun Sherpa, you can just, there you go, they take care of it, you're good. If you're going to have one of these and maintain one, you have to learn how to use this. And this was one of the original issues with this firearm. Unlike an AK-47 that I've literally seen dug out of the ground, shaken off, a little bit of motor oil put in it, it will fire. These won't. You need some certain amount of maintenance on these things. Now these are way more, they're more tougher and function do is originally they show the troops how to maintain this. And because the environment was so difficult, had a lot of malfunctions and people died because of it. Versus an AK-47 just runs and runs and runs. But I know I saw you nodding here before when I said that. AKs are also more accurate than people think, right? Because how far are you going to shoot? Right? You can shoot AK up to 300 yards. After that, the bolt drops out of the sky like a rock. The one AR I only own one. I know that's weird for a gun guy. I only own one. Is set up for long distance, and I've shot steel out to 800 yards personally. My buddy took it out to 900 yards with 77 grade bullets. Yeah, that's kind of cool. With only a 9 power skill. It's cool. Good. But you can do all sorts of crazy things with this. But this you do have to understand. So there's a knowledge base with it. AK-47 has way less parts. I can teach you how to use that in the day. That'll take about a week of training and working to get that down for an AR. And it's just, again, that's really the difference, you know. Think clock, which is like an AK, just runs and runs and runs until it stops running, then you fix it or clean it. This is more a little bit more like a 1911, a little bit more finicky and stuff. And some of the reasons why, and we'll get into that, are the gas systems, why this works and how it works. But unless you're going to shoot thousands and thousands of rounds or run around in the desert, or run around in the jungle, for most people, it'll run pretty well for quite a while. Have you had any issues with yours? I think, yeah. I mean, I can honestly say I've had like 3 malfunctions in my firearm ever. And actually, that wasn't mine, it was somebody else's. And it was just because debris got in there. They just run. They actually did a pretty good job with it. Price range, I think you asked me about this, all over the place now. All the rifles and all guns have gone up, right? The last couple of years, when we have Democrats in office, everyone thinks the guns are going to be taken away, so everyone starts buying like crazy. And Republicans are in office. In fact, the last time when we're trying to figure out what's going on, we have what's called the Trump slump. Prices and everything went down to the ground. Boom. Hard to hit rock bottom. I think this time it's going to stay relatively stable. We'll see. But you can buy a base level AR for $800-900, maybe a little bit less, $600. I think Radical Arms makes some around the $600 area. Where they save money is the finish is garbage, but the pieces work. And unless you're running it hard, it'll probably be good enough for you. All the way to Heckler & Koch, who you'll buy their base gun for $3,000. Not anything else. So it's really up to you. It's like they're like cars now. They all run. They all do their thing. They all spit a bullet out. Find the model that makes sense to you for your use, how comfortable you are. And part of that makes sense is your budget. I'm terrible. I'm cheap. I was a really rich kid who got really poor. So the poor part of stock, so I'm very cheap. Literally, I mean that. I'm cheap. I hate spending money. I won't spend more than 4 figures on a handgun. I don't care what it is. You handed me a staccato, I say I'll give it to you for $1,001. But no, I won't do it. Same with the AR. I built my AR, the one I have, with a former Delta buddy of mine. I mean, I have optics and all sorts of stuff. It maybe cost me $1,500 total. And to me, that's as much as I'm personally willing to pay for the rifle. Then again, I don't go up to Africa and hunt crazy stuff. Anyway, all right, so how these things function. There's 3 gas systems that make these things run. The original gas engine. If we were to take this handguard off, what you would see is the barrel and a tube, an aluminum tube that runs here. And what happens is underneath the sight base here, there's a hole in the barrel. And when the gun shoots and the round comes out, a bunch of the gas that's propelling that round will go into that tube and then get spit back toward the bolt. Literally like blowing under a straw. That gas then pushes the bolt to the rear, which ejects the expended brass, hits this buffer tube that goes clang in your ear, throws it back forward, strips a new round off this off the magazine, loads the gun and cocks it. That's how it works. Air-based gas system, okay? And that's the original system. The pros, it's lightweight, it's super accurate. Why? Because the system doesn't affect the barrel. If you see a slow motion direct infringement gun being shot, it's this perfectly linear movement. And these were originally designed, by the way, to be shot prone, not standing up. Versus something like an AK, when you see it shoot, because the mechanics of it, the whole barrel, everything bends and shifts. So gas gun with the appropriate length gas system and the appropriate ammo can be insanely accurate, really accurate, which is, again, is the flexibility of the system. The cons, it requires a lot of cleaning, because all that gas is what? It's, it is gas, it's exhaust, it's being spewed into the working mechanism of the firearm itself. So there's lots of carbon buildup, lots of gunk that gets in there. Your bolt will get dirty. You definitely have to run these things wet. If they get dry, they will not run. And so it can cause some issues. What I mean by wet is, well, lubricated. But for most people, if you're using a rifle or a mid-length gas system, because there's different lengths because of the lengths of barrel, this is the more ubiquitous 16-inch barrel. But the original gun was designed with a 22-inch barrel, and the system, this gas system, was designed specifically for a 22-inch barrel, and I think it's an 18-inch gas system. That's what it was originally designed. We shorten these things. As we shorten this, more gas and more gunk gets deposited here, and this becomes slightly less reliable. Also, the velocity of the round leaving the barrel lowers as the barrel gets shorter. So depending on your use, so if you're running around clearing buildings, you don't want maybe a 16-inch gun, a 12-inch gun, or a 10-inch gun can work, but you got to be careful because the system might not be great. If you're out in the field, you want to shoot long distance, you don't want to have less issues, a longer barrel is going to be your better bet. And the DI gun, super, laborious when it comes to cleaning and keeping it right. So that's the first system. The second system is basically a piston driven, a little bit more like an AK-47. So the same thing happens, round goes out, that gas gets expelled here, but instead of being spit back down a hollow tube, there's a solid piece of metal here. And the spit happens here and it pushes that rod of metal that hits the bolt, brings it to the rear, bounces off the buffer tube and comes back forward. It is way more reliable, some people would argue, depending on the situation, because you don't have all that carbon being spit in. Runs cleaner and smoother, definitely better for shooting. Why? When you're shooting a suppressor, somebody asked me, I think we mentioned it, or what people colloquially will call a silencer, it's going to affect the amount of gas that's leaving that's why it makes it quieter, leaving the firearm, but also the back pressure changes. So you have to tune your gun to your suppressor. With a piston system, you don't have to do that. It just runs. They are heavier. For the most part, you take a seriously very light aluminum tube and replace it with a big chunk of metal. It's not significantly heavier, but it's heavier. It is. And they're definitely more expensive. So our top tiered unit, the colloquially known as Delta Force, whatever you want to call the unit, they use guns that are designed like this for the most part, right? Because they want to run everything suppressed. Now, I think I mentioned this to somebody before. Everyone wants to buy suppressors. Suppressors are going off the shelf like crazy. They're not like in the movies, guys, like at all. And they're not designed to be used that way. The military doesn't use them for it to be quiet so much as they use it to stop the flash that comes out. Because if I shoot this, even with a 16-inch barrel, there's going to be a big ball of fire that comes out the front. The shorter this thing gets, it's going to look like a flamethrower, right? And so if I'm wearing night vision and moving around and doing stuff, or if I'm on a hill shooting at bad guys, they can easily see where I am because there's bursts of fire. You put the suppressor on, that doesn't happen, right? So that's why the military uses suppressors, not for what people think in the movies to make it quiet. Though, if you're shooting 22s and subsonic ammo and all this stuff, yeah, you can have some fun with suppressors. Years ago, I got to shoot a belt-fed machine gun with a suppressor, and that was pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. But this is the second version. Right? They have short stroke or long stroke pistons, slightly different. I want to get too into it, but just know there's at least those two systems. And the third one is for what they call PCCs, or pistol caliber 9mm, 45, 40 pistol calibers, because you can actually configure these things to do that. So you can take this platform, turn it into a long range DI gun, so like a quasi sniper rifle, an assault rifle, a little bit shorter, short for CQB weapon, or you can put get a PCC version and basically make it a little submachine. Right? So it's very flexible that way. System uses simply the force of the cartridge, just like your handgun does for the most part, to move the bolt to the rear. Pros, they're reliable for certain pistol calibers. Cons, requires a heavier bolt buffer tubes. Increases felt recoil based on the system, which is weird. You think, hey, it's a bigger gun, it should be less recoil, slightly more. And sadly, when it comes to AR style PCCs, they either run or they don't, like at all. It's they haven't seemed to figure it out for this system to get one that works all the time, right? So it's just how it is, right? We have a lot of guys who run these in competition because it's cheaper, it's fun, and boy, you see a guy show up with a PCC, you're like, you're either going to kill us all because you can shoot it faster, or it's going to just it's going to stop in the middle of your run. And usually you got about 65, maybe 75% chance some days of that guy's PCC going down, sadly. So you have to play with it. If you're gonna do pistol calibers, you may look at other systems. Sadly, the only really good ones I think out there are things like MP5s and stuff, which are super expensive. It's just something to think about. Though Kel-Tec makes a little cheap one that actually runs like a charm. So that's like $300, $400 piece. Am I going too fast? I just had the coffee.
No, we're good.
I know it's a lot of data. Almost worse than I did last time. Flooding you all with information.
Is this third one, I don't know, blowback or is it PCC or is it both?
It's a blowback action and it's used in the PCCs. Okay, so the first system blows gas back to the bulb. The second system shoves a rod back to the bulb. This system doesn't use that at all. It just uses the recoil of the gas itself, the actual recoil of the firearm to do that. Your handgun doesn't have a tube, right? It goes bang, and the simple physics, the weight of the springs and the recoil of the gun is what runs it. And by the way, if you shoot your gun without your hand on it, what'll happen? If I could put it on the table and just press the trigger, where's the handgun gonna go? Your hand is an integral part of having your handgun work, which is why grip, when you first learn how to shoot, is insanely important. And 99% of the people I see shooting on our range have no clue how to do it. I'll just tell you right now, I can't go on our range. I don't typically go in that part. I do the classroom work. I take my class people out. I work with my instructors. Every time I walk out on the range, my head wants to explode. I see people being unsafe. I see people with really bad basics and mechanics. And then I look at their targets and I want to scream. Part of it is, I think, in the gun world, we haven't been honest with ourselves or with our students on what good is and even what acceptable basic levels of skill are. It's shoot the gun. Did it hit the paper? You're good. I will tell you and I will push you, because that's how I am, I'm that guy, that's not good enough. So when people come to me, they'll ask, hey, I want to take your advanced classes. We don't teach advanced classes. We teach basic and fundamental skills. I will ask them, okay, can you put a target out at 15 feet? That's not that far. Get your gun out, give me a tempo drill. Bam, 1 1,000, bam, 2 1,000, bam, 3 1,000, bam, something like that. Maybe a little slower, maybe a little faster. And can you have all rounds touching? They're like, God, no. I'm like, well, then you don't know how to shoot yet. No, but that's really good. No, it's not. That is not good. That's basic. That's the disconnect. People think if you can shoot that way, you're some incredible shooter. No, I'm shooting slow. No one's shooting back at me. There's no time. It's an air-conditioned building. I should absolutely be able to do that. Then you can go to the other stuff. What people do is they jump straight to the black belt stuff. I mean, you learn how to fight, but they don't work their basics. And I implore people, because I'm a skills guy, right? I don't want you to have gear. I want you to have kit that you don't know how to use and don't know how to use well. To me, it's what's the point, right? But it takes time, money, and effort to do that, which is why a 22 version of an AR-15, you can get them in 22. If you really want to get good with this platform, is a really good idea, because all the manipulation is the same. All the stuff's the same. The only difference is when you go bang, it's 4 cents a round instead of $1.50 a round. So it's kind of worth doing. Or if you go PCC and can get one that works, it's a lot cheaper than shooting the other stuff. All right, where are we here? All right, ammunition. Speaking of, boy, you can feed all sorts of things into this. Actual original caliber is something called 223 or 5.56 NATO. Caliber is designated in inches, 0.233 of an inch, or in millimeters, 5.56 millimeter. However, those rounds are slightly different, and most people don't know that. So if you buy a gun that's shot marked 5.56, it will shoot a 223. However, if you get a 223 rifle, it may be a little finicky with 5.56. Something to think about. The actual bullet itself, and again, this whole thing is not a bullet. Right, this part here is the bullet. Here's your casings, you have your primer, and then the powders inside. But these bullets come in different weights, and the weights are designated in something called grains, which I won't fully describe because it's some weird archaic thing. It was, I don't know, the weight of the salt shaker for some king back in the day. Some bizarre gauges like that too. It's how many lead balls in a pound. It's so weird. I don't know why we still use it. But 55 grain is the most common and the cheapest for practice. Don't work as well against bad guys. You need to say that. 62 grain, a little better. 77 grain is way heavy. That's what I use for my long range stuff. We also have something called green tips, where a lot of people go crazy, buy cheap. Green tips are designed to go through light armor. Real important to remember that, right? So you go, oh, cool, I get a bunch of cheap presets, bring it down, and I want to shoot here, and you're shooting through the steel target that your buddy brought out the desert or something like that. That can happen, right? And there's something a little bit more unique that's typically used for training, but the SEALs back in the day really developed this for their CQB when they were taking back ships, oil platforms and things like that. It's frangible ammunition. Okay, frangible ammunition is made of compressed copper usually or some other metal, and when it hits anything solid, it goes, falls apart. So it dumps its kinetic energy very quickly if it's anything solid. Because think about it, SEAL goes up there, we're gonna take the battleship back, and they put holes in everything. Great, you got the battleship back. What's the point? It's all broken. So they developed this way back in the day to use. You can get them now. They are on for civilian use. Admittedly, all my certain guns that I have are loaded with frangible for that reason. Makes sense. You also have a new one. The new coolness is something called 300 Blackout. Now, 300 Blackout uses the same magazines, can fit into your lower. The upper is different because .330 is now a 30 caliber, not a 22. So it's a fatter bullet, bigger, wider bullet that's designed specifically to use for suppressed suppressor. So it's as big as like an AK-47 bullet. It's traveling a little bit, I think about the same speed. And notice for some reason that combination of brain weight, when you're shortening the barrel, it doesn't lose all the velocity versus a 223. The shorter the barrel goes, the less velocity gets, the less effective your firearm will be. There's also something called 6.5 Brendel, which they were experimenting for the military. They didn't choose that. They chose something else. I'll get to that in a bit. And even something called a 450 Bushmaster. Those are typically specialized hunting rounds. 450 is what it sounds like. It's .45, so it's a 45 caliber, almost half an inch. Yeah, big deal. Again, frogs I knew back in the day experimented with that too. They had something called a maybe it was the Bushmaster, something like that, and they were using it for CQB. See how it works, just because big ass caliber. It didn't work so well. They moved into that. Factors for choosing your ammo. What use? What are you using it for? If you're just going to practice on the range, get 55 grain. It's cheap. It's easy. You want to use it, God forbid, for anti-personnel reasons. I would move up to at least 62 grain. And for long range, depending on how your rifle's tuned, my rifle's tuned for 77 grains. It's heavier, but because it's heavier, it flies in a flatter trajectory. If you're into math and crazy science and all sorts of stuff, getting a long distance shooting, it's all math. You got to figure out all sorts of crazy things, spin drift, how the wind affects the bullet, the curvature of the earth, the rotation of the earth at certain distances. It gets crazy, but it's actually a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. I'll do, if I'm shooting a pistol in an hour, I'll go through 500, 600, 700 rounds pretty quick. I mean, I shoot fast and a lot. I'm shooting a rifle long distance, I'll shoot 20 rounds in a day. But they're perfect. You have fun. It's kind of cool. It's like, I don't know, it's very mellow. You get people know what they're doing. You're chilled out. You're on your platform. You're relaxed. Nice long shoot. It's kind of neat. And if you've never done that, so you have your sniper, you have a spotter, the guy behind the shooter. And he has a scope. He's looking to see where the rounds are impacting. If you've never done that before, you can actually see them go through the atmosphere. So in the movie, like in the movie The Matrix, where it looks like the bullets, that's real. You can see it in real time. And it's kind of cool. You can actually see the arc of the bullet, see where it hits, and then you tell your buddy how to affect it. And honestly, I find when I did that was more fun than shooting. Because then you're like, oh, go up left to the right. Ding, cool, you got it. And it's just neat to see. You also get to experience some fun physics that most of us don't usually experience, that light travels way faster than sound. So through your scope, you'll see the round hit, the still target move, and then about a second later, it'll go bing, and it's kind of fun. I'm a science geek, so that's kind of neat. So again, use what you're using it for. That's important. The environment you're using it in. If you're shooting at light armored vehicles, get green tips. If you're not, don't, because they will go through everything. So for home defense, when people talk about this, there's certain animals you absolutely do not want to shoot in your house, because they will go through your house, through your neighbor's house, and maybe somebody else's. Right? Other stuff like frangible, if it hits something relatively solid, will stop. So something to think about. And last is cost. Ammo is super expensive. It's gotten worse. This is my first job where I've had to buy ammo. So I've become, I've become super aware of it, and I'm not real fun. I spent a couple of years just shooting in our sim room. I'm like, I am not buying ammo. Boss was thinking, being really nice, give me 1,000 rounds. I'm like, dude, I'll use this in a day. So yeah, recently I just mentioned him. There's some deals out there. A lot of them driven by the tariff threat, where a lot of, I think it's the Spanish or Mexican manufacturers, Aguila, and there's another one. So they're trying to sell the 22 calibers like crazy. So I just bought 4,000 rounds of 22 for, I think they're $109 for 2,000 at True Shot. I'll blow through that in a month, but still, it's cheaper than buying 1,000 rounds of 9mm, $240, $250 at best. We're still getting that oversupply that was made after everyone did the hoarding back during 2019. But as that changes, you're going to see changes a little bit different, and they realize that we're going to pay more money for ammo. So just be cognizant of the costs. And quite frankly, if you're wealthy enough, you don't care, have fun. More power to you. You know, go nuts. Just invite me to come shoot. All right, customization and modularity. This is one of the reasons why everyone loves this thing. All right, this is one of the first super old school cool stuff. And the only addition, because it has an old A1 sight, is this 3-power scope. This would be a collector's item, probably $10,000 or so, if it's the original SP101. Super simple, but this is what people do today. They kind of go nuts, right? They put on this crazy sling, they get an optic, maybe a magnifier or some other type. The really interesting thing is there are people putting lasers and infrared lasers on their guns, like civilians. I'm like, okay, why? But it's cool. Okay, well, so why this existed for the military is, again, we're in nods, so night vision goggles, it's dark. I'm the officer. I said, look, I need you guys to concentrate your fire there. How do I show them that? I hit the button of my IR laser, and everyone with night vision can see a laser pointing at where I want them to shoot. So I can target and designate where we're going. I can also have everyone go, okay, we're all set up in our defensive positions, turn on your lasers. And me as the officer can look and see, okay, everyone's got good. You can check that. You couldn't do that before. Now, if the bad guys have night vision, they can see it too, but most of them don't, so you're pretty good. But that's what it's for. There's also a visible laser for when they go to white light, which is a big deal, and there's usually a white light attached to it. When that happens, NOTS comes off. And then the suppressor, which again is really used to stop the flash signature, slightly reduce the noise. Because if you shoot one of these unsuppressed in a building like this, you're going to be going beep for about the next week before your ears fall apart. I had one experience shooting with some guys back in my ninja days with some people who are not ninjas. It's always fun when you like train with people who think they know what they're doing, and then years later you train with people who do. You're like, oh my god, I can't believe I did that. But I had a guy bump into me and knock my hearing protection off, and the barrel of his AR was right here, and he shot off 5 to 10 rounds, and this ear has never worked the same since. Period. One exposure. Right, but he was this close, and I mean, it was bad. So you have to be careful. Shoot that in your house, you're going to go deaf. You know, at least for a while. So something to think about, and that's where suppressors could be of use, right? To stop that. Plus pressure. These things shoot out a lot of gas, which very quickly, which changes the ambient pressure around you. So you go boom, you will physically feel it. Have you ever shot indoors yet? Anybody? The difference between shooting indoors and outdoors, right? Outdoors, you go bang, pressure and sound waves go away from you, keep going. Indoors, it bounces back. And so that feeling for a lot of people that see too, they'll start shooting, whoa, I can't do this. It bothers them, it freaks them out. So do that in your home or some other enclosed space. So this does help protect that. They are expensive. You do need a tax stamp for it. May or may not be worth it. But these are really the extremes, right? Something super simple, something with all sorts of crazy stuff on. If this was like H&R is now making versions of these, so I think $1,000 rifle, and then whatever optic you're throwing at, this is probably $3,000 to $5,000, if not more, probably more. I think the laser alone is close to $1,000, $1,500. So you can go nuts with these things, but if it doesn't make sense for you, don't buy this stuff. We got guys at C2 show up because this tactical word. Yeah, I was telling him that this guy had at least $10,000 rifle, HK 20-inch, had a laser on it, had it had everything on it. And then the poor guy couldn't quite reach to put his suppressor on. He took the gun like this and was doing this. Like, oh my God. My range officer, get this guy out here. It was crazy. Yeah, safety goes out the window when people get frustrated. It's kind of weird. Buy what you need. Buy what makes sense to you, right? Have some fun with it. Use some friends. That's another thing. I don't know if you guys know. Do a day or even come to CT. We have tons of these things to rent. Try them out. Test drive before you buy and see what's worth it. Typically, they come in a different, we're gonna go a little bit more to this, but typically now you mentioned the different sizes. The original AR rifle or 116 rifle had a 22-inch barrel, which is relatively long. But it was specifically designed for that round and that gases. What's very common now is the 16-inch barrel, which is essentially what we have here, right? So 4 inches shorter, makes it a little bit more wieldy, does not significantly decrease the muzzle velocities coming out of this, works relatively well. Then people have got all sorts of cool things, start chopping these things down because everyone wants to be CQB ninja guy running through stuff. So what we have next is anything below 16 inches with a stock, a legitimate stock, is considered a short barreled rifle. This you do have to get it's an ATF stamp. You have to do your tax stamp, pay extra money for this. Okay, then this crazy loophole, which again, I know a lot of people don't like when I say this, should never have been allowed ever. Sorry, has now allowed everyone to buy these things called AR pistols, which essentially is an SBR without having to do the tax stamp. It just is. And how it popped up originally was a good idea. You had vets coming back from the war who couldn't shoot, maybe they didn't have legs, they didn't have an arm. And this originally was meant to wrap around their arms so they could hold it like a pistol and shoot. Then some guys realized, oh, ATF doesn't care about that. We can just put these here and run around with guns this big. And then they went away for a while. They were made illegal. Now they're kind of in this weird, nefarious, nobody knows. They are hard to manipulate. They typically don't extend, some do. So basically it's like a stock, but it's not as secure as a stock. But it allows you to have a very short barrel without the money being spent. And that's up to you to do. I think a 16-inch barrel is more than good enough for most people. For the if you wanted to shoot, it's the most comfortable. It's the best balance. Others would argue, and I would agree with them, really a 14-inch barrel, and you can get 14 and I think 13.9-inch barrels. But what they do is they permanently attach your flash hider or your muzzle brake to make the overall length of the barrel 16. And what do I mean by that? Most of these, you can screw this thing off, put something else on, right? So it really is, if this is a 14.5-inch barrel, that's technically an SBR, so I have to pay extra money. If I pin and weld this, so it's permanently attached to be that 16-inch disc length, I can have that length barrel. I can't change this, and it's still legal. And really, I would say the 14.5 with something attached permanently is probably your best. If you're gonna go shorter than that, the big one out there is 10 inches. Those don't work as well. 12.5 for my cool guy buddies is about the ideal length. Those are hard to find because most of the military guys have them. You can get them, they're more expensive. There's a bunch of different groups that do that. But again, back to what you're using it for. This is with a fully extended stock. If I were to collapse this, it would be about that short. Why this is a cool thing? We're all built differently. I used to be 170 pounds, actually 140, believe it or not. At 230, I'm a little bigger. All right, so this is kind of, I can adjust this. Or if you're shooting it, it fits differently, different lengths of pull. So this gives you a lot of flexibility, though it's a little bit noisy. Sometimes it clicks around, or you get a full stock that's permanent for reading. All right, efficacy for home defense. Oh, I think we're almost done. I'll make it faster. Throws lightweight, accurate, low recoil, allows for quick follow shots. You put a 30-round magazine. If it doesn't malfunction, it'll go bangy, 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 as long as you want until it's empty. High capacity magazines are good, but high capacity magazines also fail more than low capacity magazines. That's something we learned. So my home gun, when I had one, had a 20-rounder and not a 30. Wide variety of defensive ammunition is now available for it. Cons, over penetration. If you're using the wrong rounds, this thing can go through drywall a lot. And I'm lucky. I live in an all brick home, so I can shoot anything. If you live in a stucco and chicken wire home, nothing you shoot that can work against a bad guy will not stay in that house. It will leave your home. probably, unless it's something super solid. You defend yourself, you're probably going to shoot a neighbor. You definitely have felony counts against you, even if you survive because of the stuff you did outside your home. Please look at your environment, fix it. I mean, literally. So the one hallway where the bad guy you know is going to come, put somebody in that hallway that can stop him around. Please do that for me. Appreciate it. Legalities, right? Some places don't allow AR-15s. Size may be unwieldy for people. This is more about I'm going to sit back and wait until the cops come thing. Please do not do CQB and try to clear your house ever. Please don't. I know the world and YouTube tells you can do that. I will tell you right now, you will die. I'm telling you right now. And I can prove it. I'll come to your house with a BB gun and say, come get me. And you'll never survive. 3-to-1 ratio minimum to survive. 3-to-1, 3 people with lots of training who have worked together for years against any person, even with no skills, to survive it. That's how CQB really works. It's a team effort. It's not solo. Second, and probably more important, it's an offensive maneuver. How are you going to defend that court? The same. I went out and cleared my house. So think about it. Sights and options. Iron sights. This old thing here had a hole here and a little post here. They work great. They always run. They never break for the most part. Learn how to use them, just like the iron sights in your gun. But if you're getting blind as a bat like me, you might want to look into something like a red dot or a holographic sight, which then puts a little dot. Same thing, learn how to use it properly, know what appropriate distance is. Really about 100 yards is what I tell people is what you want to think about dots for. Otherwise, it starts getting weird because the dot gets too big to be particularly accurate. The next level of optics. So here's a dot. Here's what's called an LPVO, a low power variable optic that can go from 1 power to 4, 5, 6, sometimes 10. So you can dial it in. Good and bad. Good part is it has lots of flexibility. The bad part is it doesn't do any of those things particularly well. So when you dial it to 1, everyone thinks, oh, it's like a CQB, a dot. It doesn't work that way. It's better from 3+. So my gun, it's set up, I actually have something more like this. It's only 3 to 9. 3 to 9, and I have a dot on the side. So sometimes you combine 2 things. Now you're adding all sorts of crazy stuff on your gun, but it makes it easier. But again, if you're not shooting up to 300 yards mid-range, you don't need an LPVO. Probably a waste of time. Then a fully magnified scope for hunting and other things for 300 yards plus. Again, depending on how you're shooting, what caliber, you can go out to 1,000 yards. So get back to your uses and what you need. So AR-15 in the U.S. military, AR-15 is the civilian model of the M16/M4 rifle, right? They are moving away from it. The new weapon system they're looking at right here is the Sig Sauer XM7 and the XM250. It's a set system of the assault rifle itself / battle rifle with an intermediate round, a 6.8 round, which is more like a battle rifle.
Well, what round are they?
6.8. 6.8. Yeah, they're moving to that. So it's basically halfway between a 308 and a 223, right in the middle. And they have a belt fed version. This is what the one that looks like they're going to use. But for fun and giggles, this is our progression of our military service rifles, which is kind of funny, right? They get smaller and smaller. Now they're going back to this big sucker because of the engagement we've been in. And then again, we're always 50 years behind. We're always fighting the last war. This was really designed for something like Afghanistan, but the next war is probably not going to be that. Hopefully we don't have one. Who knows? So why an AR-15? Why would you have one? For home personal defense, it's light, easy to work, it's handle, high capacity, it's customizable for defensive needs if you determine you need this. Or, and I always, this is my caveat to people, if this is the only gun you can shoot. People forget that. I saw a guy yesterday buy a tiny little gun for his wife. And I'm not a retail guy. I'm not going to screw up the sale. I'm sitting there, I'm like, this guy is making the biggest mistake of his life. Have your wife come and shoot all the guns, and I don't care what it is she shoots. Whatever she shoots well, she enjoys shooting, is comfortable shooting. That's the gun she gets. Same with you guys. Hey, I'm gonna get this gun because the cool dudes shoot it. Great, shoot it. I did that in my first gun. Read a couple articles, bought it, couldn't hit the side of a barn with the damn thing. It's not useful. Guns are like cars, right? Cars do the same thing. They move, guns spit a rock. Find the one that works for you. I don't care if it's a 22 revolver. That's your gun. Learn how to shoot it, get good with it, get confident. That can work in any situation you need it to, even though people say, oh, you need this caliber. It's not true. right? Think of it this way. Yeah, if I palm you in the chest hard, it's like a 45. If I punch you in the chest, it's like a 9mm. If I poke you in the eye, which can be very effective, that's like a 22. What's the difference? Accuracy. That's it. That's it. So be comfortable with it. Another reason people have these things, competition is shooting. Yeah, you know, they're fun to shoot, they're easy to shoot. A lot of these military style can't parry things, and even 3-guns, everyone's moved to ARs just because they're fast. You can shoot them forever, you get 90,000 round magazines, bang, 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 bang. And they are fun to shoot, I will say that. For hunting, they're not optimal unless you're shooting varmints and stuff like that, or you go up to a bigger caliber. Because 223 really is a 22 on steroids. It's not going to take down deer or anything. In fact, most places it's legal to use this round for deer. Poachers will do it, but I've seen it once. It was the most disgusting thing I ever saw. A guy literally dropped a 30-round magazine with this deer trying to kill it. It was just terrible. Instead of ethically taking the animal and harvesting it. Great for small game, quick follow-up shots if you miss. A lot of guys shoot coyotes and stuff with this. Disaster and emergency prep. Yeah, I mean, if you're one of those guys, a prepper, makes sense to have a Glock and an AR because that's what's going to be everywhere. But then again, if you understand survival situations, what did I just say? They're going to be everywhere. Just pick one up off one of the bodies. Or one of your friends who's a gun guy who's got that giant safe. You're like, can I borrow one of those? Thank you. You know, it's just how it is. It really is going to be everywhere. They are reliable, but you do have to maintain them. Okay, that's important. So the balance are reliable and the ubiquity of them. There'll be lots laying around. You know, I get a lot of grief when people are like, you don't have an AR. I have one. It's set for long distance. I prefer to shoot other things. My favorite gun is my little 1022. You shoot all day long. Take down, it's great. Anything I need with that. Other one is some people really push this as the whole Second Amendment thing, right? My right to bear arms, great. My right to bear military arms, because I think I could fight against Apache helicopters and tanks, cool, whatever, if that's your thing. Okay. And now ubiquity, because quite frankly, all sides have them. Everyone has them. Everyone got scared in the last couple of years, right? Irrationally, I think, personally. We live in still the greatest country on earth, the safest place on the planet. Boy, everyone thinks we're about to go into civil war. I don't quite buy into that, but whatever. But if we do, this is going to be the tool used by everyone because they're literally everywhere. So it might be worth knowing how to do. When I used to travel overseas, we do something called a fan fire. Learn how to use AK this, wherever place we were going. So if something occurred, you could pick it up off of whomever or read it from somebody and make it work. So something to think about. Why not having an AR-15? A lot of people don't like them. AR is not needed for self-defense, some people say. The handguns and shotguns and other things are better. Now I skipped something here. Let me go back real quick. Is on this slide. Where is it? This one. So see how the person has it all set up with all their cool guy stuff on it, their lights and their ninja stuff. Depending on what state you're in, what court looks at this can look pretty scary versus something like this. There's wood all over it. I want it to look like grandpa's shotgun. Because light is more of an offense. Something to think about. Food for thought. High profile mass shootings. So a lot of people don't like these things. They don't understand them. And over penetration with the wrong ammo is a significant risk. Now, having said that, a 9mm bullet, your handgun bullet, will go through as many, if not more, layers of drywall than your AR-15 will, depending on the round. Even though this is traveling much faster, it has such less mass, it dissipates its energy quicker than something like a 9mm or 45, which can continue to go. So if you guys, seriously, this is super important. If I leave here, the one thing I can give you guys, if you truly think you need this for your home, I need you to look at your home like a shooting range and need to know what directions you could fire and not hurt your neighbors. And if you don't have something that can absorb a round, buy something. Put something, seriously, build a wall, put some bricks up, put something up that can do that. Because if not, you may go bangy, 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 you hurt your neighbor. You're responsible for their death too. Right? That to me, I don't carry a gun. I don't. People are like, why? I'm like, because I don't want to risk other people's lives for my safety. I have other skill sets. I'm good. I'll take your gun if it's not already out. Sorry, I will. You'll never get it out. I can run still, even with the knee surgeries, right? I have all sorts of things I can do. At home, do I have firearms? Yes, I do. But I have a house that allows me to literally fire in any direction and maintain that round within my home.
Most people don't have that. I literally have a shooting range at my house and I shoot French ammunition. I'm not gonna hurt anybody else. But if you don't have that, that is a significant security issue. And your security is not necessarily about surviving yourself. It's about what happens after, psychologically, legally, all these things, morally, ethically, right? I've had a life, I can go tomorrow and I'm good. So, this is why you might customization, suitability for home defense or lack thereof, right? Future of the platform, it is going away in the military, but which means the market is where? Us. That's why they push so hard to get the AR-15 in civilian hands, because it's a business, right? Final thoughts real quick. Do you need an AR-15? If you think no after this, or you're thinking, no, I don't think I want that, look at other platforms. Okay, there's tons of stuff out there that you can have and use. There is tons of options. And don't let anybody tell you you need a semi-automatic or this or that. Find the firearm that works for you, that you enjoy. I have a buddy who uses an old Enfield rifle for his home defense, and he will use it very effectively. It's a bolt action, old school rifle from World War II. Right? Because I'll tell you about, this is all about training. Your gear does not matter. I can give you an F1 Formula car. If you don't know how to drive, it's worse for you. You will crash and die. So really spend the time on that. And if 22 is what it is, a revolver, or, I don't care what it is, bolt action rifle, become a badass. You know, like, become a badass with that, and then worry about the rest. If yes, hey, I think AR-15 is for me, I would recommend buying the minimum amount of accessories. Right? Buy the gun, 3 magazines, right? You don't need more than that. Trust me, you'll never need more than that unless you beat them up. But you want a couple to train with. Maybe a sling, but that's down the road if you're gonna have it on your body. And as much ammo as you can afford. How much is enough?
Never enough.
Okay, but think about, I've been playing with this lately. I wrote an article, whether or not we have a blog at C2. With a Pareto principle, the 10,000 hours for mastery. So I call it the 10,000 round rule. 10,000 rounds to master whatever platform you're shooting. Now that's mastering it. Important. Where do we get to competency? 2,000 to 3,000 rounds. If you're training well and have standards of which you're shooting. So look at 2,000 to 3,000 rounds. Right? Your first 1,000 rounds are most important. Know the manual of arms, how to work it, how to click all the buttons, how to load it, unload it safely. Okay, when we teach our rifle 1 course, the entire course is how to load and unload this thing. And back to the whole thing, wherever method works better for you, all like old school military, all shooting hand, do that. It's an administrative load. Don't worry about tactical red loads. If it's more the tactical versions, great, or the combination, put it in, turn it over, look at it. SEAL Team 6, buddy, great. Learn how to hold it, learn how to use the sights, be comfortable with it, have some fun. And then you can decide, then have sustainment training. So you do 2,000 rounds, you take our classes, you get really good with it, cool. And how much training do you need every quarter, every month to maintain those skill sets? Because the skill sets do fall apart. They are degradable. All right, get the max amount of training, max amount of ammo, 10,000 round minimum. And I think, yep, we're good. Any questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We've only got about 10 minutes and we have to get out of this room. So if you want to take questions, please do, and please do cover up your toys.
Yeah. First thing I'm doing.
By the way, we've hit a milestone. We're at 290 members.
Really?
Now, they don't all come, of course, but this is a good crowd. So thank you very much for coming on down. Again, if you have ideas for speakers or topics, let me know. We meet here the second Wednesday of every month. So again, let's thank Vince.
Yeah, if you haven't been down to C2, guys, we have 2 locations currently, one in Scottsdale.